Perfect.
So we're joined from Atlanta for our first guest of the spring 2025 semester, Deja White, the founder of Breakroom Buddha, AI systems creator, career development expert, and she is just doing so many great things. We thank you so much for joining us today. We got a room full here with me at Velma Jackson High School, and we're recording this for all of our friends in Madison County schools, all of our computer science engineering students, including my good friend Angela Jordan over there at Shirley Simmons Middle School and for our YouTube channel. So thank you so much for taking some time for us today.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me.
All right, so before we get into all the cool things in tech that you've done here recently, just give us a little background. University of Georgia for 2 degrees over there in Athens,
Yeah,
and your degree was not in tech. Your degree was in something different. So just give us a little
was not.
background of how you got a degree in something, and with the changing tech trends, use that degree to go along with the things in tech that are going on now to become what you're doing now.
Yeah, so growing up, I realized that I really love to tell stories. So naturally, I was like, all right, I'll go to school to be in journalism. Like I just want to tell stories. I want to be in media. I will be a journalist. Fast forward, I did a lot of things. I was on our student radio station. I did student magazines. In high school, I actually went to a secondary high school where I learned how to do news anchoring and things like that. And I was like, maybe not that type of journalism. Maybe I want to do like film and television instead. So that's what I got my degree on. In film and television production. It was still in our journalism department, so I was surrounded by stories all the time. But I got really specific in that. I actually wanted to be a computer science minor while I was in high school. But I would have had to go back and take more math classes. So for anyone listening, if you are nearing your junior year, or before you enter your junior year in college, make sure you know whether or not you want to be a computer science minor so you don't have to go backwards. So I decided not to go backwards and instead did a certificate program called New Media. And it was the best thing I could have done. I knew how to code a little bit. I took coding classes in high school. So it was no problem when I decided to take on that certification. And we learned about UX, UI design. We learned about the more creative front end side of the tech industry. And before I graduated college, I actually got a job on campus as a web designer, web developer. So
Wow.
that sort of solidified. I was like, all right, I want to work in tech now. I can tell stories. I can help translate the technical jargon maybe in a way that the audience could understand. I could design in a way that was less clunky than what a normal computer science major might design. So that is the direction that I started to move towards. And by my senior year, I actually had an internship offer from Uber. So that also further solidified my place in wanting to work in tech. So that's a little bit about how I transitioned that journalism degree. I never changed my major. I just added a certificate program and I raised my hand for jobs and roles outside of the classroom to help me move more towards tech because I knew that was my goal.
That's awesome. And I'm glad you mentioned a couple things there because obviously with what we talk about in our school district is we don't discourage anybody from going to college because we got so many great universities here in Mississippi and across the South. University of Georgia is another one. But we have some kids that are kind of on the fence about going to
Mhm.
college. And you mentioned about getting that certificate program.
Mhm.
We have a great community college system here where
Mhm.
you can get a certificate in IT and some of these other fields in 9, 10 months, and these technical companies are looking for somebody who can do the job, not necessarily a degree. So, with what you're looking at now, if a
Mhm.
kid's kind of like, I want to work in tech, but I'm not really a college person, are these boot camps and these technical certificates just as effective as a degree when it comes to getting into the field?
I would say so, yes. I didn't mention that I do hackathons. So I love the boot camp, the startup environment, those hackathons that you go to. It's all about the connections that you make. I will say that the boot camps are a bit lengthy and they're very strict on what they teach you. So be mindful when you go into those boot camps and make sure that you're learning what you need to learn in order to get the job or the role that you're looking at. But I think every opportunity is an opportunity. So when you enter into the boot camp, it's an instant community. If you don't want to go to the boot camps and you want to do hackathons, they're normally free. You don't have to pay to enter into them. It's a built-in community. So a lot of times they're sponsored, so that you can go into it for free. They feed you. You have a team of people. You get connected to investors who are looking for startups. So like that's another hack that you can do without spending a ton of money. And then the certificate programs. My certificate program, I extended it. So it was about 2 semesters for me. But like you mentioned, there are some that you can finish in a couple of months, in a year. And it's all about, I think I call it like a job seeker stack. Like, you have your tech stack, your job seeker stack. It's about mixing and matching. So you can do a boot camp, you can do hackathons, or you can do hackathons, you can do a certificate program, you can go to some networking events. It's all about stacking. Whatever you can do to stack, it'll help you get a little bit further faster. And you don't necessarily have to even touch college if you are stacking the right resources that you have.
Yeah, and a new route into tech, and I'm sure you know this as well, is the military, especially the Air Force,
Yeah.
Space Force. They're dealing with some of the most state-of-the-art technology on the planet, and they're literally paying you to learn it. And I know that's changed in the
Yeah.
last few decades, but that is a great way to get into tech right now as well.
Yeah. Yeah. I always tell people to look for non-traditional routes. I didn't go the military route, but I know some people who are going the military route. I chose to dip into media companies and startups a lot and even nonprofits. And take the technical skills that I have, the storytelling skills that I have, and I learned to mash them together. So if you have a certain skill, but you want to move into tech, how can you use that skill to get in the door and then start learning their technology or whatever type of tech space you want to be in? How can you start to sort of raise your hand for those projects, start to move more towards that direction? That's sort of the approach that I call it, the backdoor approach. That's sort of the approach that I've taken throughout my entire career, to help me stay in that tech realm. But yeah, how can you use a backdoor strategy or approach to get where you want to be? That's very smart.
Yeah, and then also, I think you also talked about something very important. I'm glad you mentioned this. For the people that want to go to college and want to get involved in these universities, like we said, we've got some great ones here. You talked about one of the things you did at college wasn't just going to class. You worked on campus. You were able to
Mhm.
have tangible things to show these companies because you can get a computer science degree at one of the finest institutes in America. But if you don't have any work you can show, you don't have any networking, that degree is going to be worthless because the GPA obviously is
Yeah.
very important for anybody wanting to go to college. But you've got to get in these student organizations. You've got to get these on-campus jobs, these internships, to not only get the experience but to network. And also, if you want to be in any type of tech field, you've got to show that you can do the job. So you were able to have tangible things you could show somebody as you were applying for these jobs. So how important is that as kids start making decisions as they're in middle school, high school, getting ready to uh, as they're getting ready to transition?
Yeah, it's very important. So I'll take it backwards a little bit from my high school time. So I actively had internships as a high schooler. So it wasn't in the tech space, it was outside of the tech space, but I still showed that I could show up to work on time, that I had manageable tasks that I could complete for a company. So it doesn't have to be a paid internship all the time. So I always tell high school students, how can you ask for job shadowing opportunities? How can you ask to do some volunteer work for a company? Some companies might provide a stipend, so that is a question that you can ask as well. But you have to take initiative a little bit. So I knew going into college, I wanted to tell stories. So I looked at how could I get experience telling stories before I got to college. Now, me looking for experience ended up with tangible items that I could take to college with me. So that's how I did it. I asked small businesses. I looked for opportunities outside of my school, but then I signed up for classes. So I was smart. So I took my computer science class. I took yearbook classes. I took newspaper classes. So those are all things that I could take with me to college to showcase that I had a portfolio or that I had experience doing things that I said that I wanted to do. Outside of school and my community, I also was very avid on like websites like Tumblr. So I learned how to build my own Tumblr templates and edit them. So I was practicing my skills outside of the classroom too. So I think that's just very important. If you say that you want to do something and that you're curious, how can you tap into your resources in the school, outside of the school, in your community, and even in your own home? Like I was in my home building those Tumblr templates or those website templates. So yeah, just tap into the resources that you have access to.
Yeah, and something for our school district. I know we have some seventh and eighth graders that'll see this later, but here in our school district, they can start getting IT certifications before they even graduate. Starting in 10th or 11th grade, they can take our
Yeah.
IT program at our Madison County Career Center, and they can graduate high school with certifications and get ready to go ahead and have those available to start working and get their foot in the door. So I'm with you on that. Use the resources. I mean, you're here in school; those don't cost you a thing, and you can get them before you graduate. So I'm with you on that
Mhm.
100%.
Yeah,
Now,
I love that.
uh, the brand you started is Breakroom Buddha, which I think is so interesting because
Yes.
obviously we're talking about tech. We're talking about, you do a lot of AI creation, but it is such a cool thing because it meshes that technology with personal branding and career development, which is such a big deal for our district and for all of our generation because these kids know how to use tech. They're all watching you on a MacBook right now. And then those will see this later. We'll see it on Chromebooks or however their teacher decides to show it. But what is missing is the career development and the personal selling and personal marketing from all these kids, along with the communication skills. And that's something that you really hit on in Breakroom Buddha. So tell us a little bit about how that started, what all you do, and some of the things that you try to instill in these young people as they're getting ready to move on for their next step after high school.
Yeah, thank you for the question. So, Breakroom Buddha started after I graduated college. I'd been active on LinkedIn, and a lot of students were very curious about how I landed a job after college. They were finding it difficult. They didn't know how to write resumes, they didn't know how to interview properly. So I sort of became an unofficial mentor for college students who were struggling to get hired after college. I was always building websites and building blogs, so I thought, why not? If people have the same questions over and over again, how can I put this on a platform where people can tap into it anytime they want? So Break Buddha actually started off as a career advice website.
Wow.
It's still up. I will never take it down. It's breakroombuddha.com, and you can go and type in any question about careers, and there is probably a step-by-step guide or article on there that will help you make the first move or make the first step. So I started that and I kept it going for a while just as a blog and as creating content on LinkedIn because LinkedIn is where you want to go if you're curious about your career, if you want to connect with new people. That is the website that you should be looking at, even if you are in high school. I see some high school students on there now, and I'm proud of them because I didn't get started until college. And the only reason I created my account was because a professor made it a part of our grade. So
Wow.
get on LinkedIn now. Yes. So I started it because of that. And since then have expanded it. So I go to high schools and I have workshop sessions where I talk about my career journey, what's possible beyond high school. I also did, you mentioned I created an AI tool. First, it started off as an AI chat bot that anyone could ask career questions to after high school questions, college bound questions. So if you wanted to know what type of college you wanted to go to and what majors they offered, a lot of students were using it for that. I have since expanded it to an all-in-one platform. So now students can go on there. They can still use the AI chat feature, but now they can get their resume analyzed. They could prepare for an interview. So if you have a college entrance interview, you can prepare for it. If you have a job interview, you can prepare for it right on that platform. And you don't have to know how to prompt. All you have to do is tell it what career field you're interested in, and it will give you questions
Wow.
that you can practice.
Man,
And
what
then
an
it
AI tool.
also
That is
has
awesome.
a yes, thank you. And then it also has a career planner tool. So if you start in one
Wow.
place, it will tell you possible directions that you can move into after you're ready to move on from that one field. So yes, it's taken about 5 to 6 months to build. I had a team to help me, but I'm so excited about it. And I'm so excited that it's no prompt. A lot of people are scared of AI. And I want to break down that barrier for people who want to use technology to help them in their careers. So yeah, that's been my number one goal with Breakroom Buddha. But I'll continue to lead my workshops. I'll continue to write my articles. And now I've started making YouTube videos for
Yeah.
the next generation because they love videos. I've
Yeah.
started making YouTube videos so they can learn the basics of how to approach their career. I consider myself a career strategist because you have to be strategic in your career to get where you want to go. So I teach my strategies on YouTube as well.
And I'm glad you mentioned that because I was going to say that too, and we'll get that information before we're done. But the last thing before I get to their questions is along those same lines. I'm big on, all the technology is cool. That the TikTok, the Instagram, there's celebrities I like following. I'm a big sports fan, so I like seeing what the
Yeah.
athletes are doing and stuff like that. But that stuff doesn't get you a job. Having the skills to walk in a room and introduce yourself, being able to write something that is legible. You can design a great program, but if you can't explain it and you can't sell it and you can't sell yourself,
Yep.
you're gonna be on the outside looking in on a lot of
Yep.
these careers that need people with those skills. So, what are some skills that you're seeing lacking in the kids that are coming to you for the advice?
Yeah, I'm glad that you mentioned the selling piece. The way that I look at careers, I always look at it as you have to learn how to sell yourself on paper. So, selling yourself on paper is your resume, it's your cover letter, it's the small short answers that people ask. It's your college essay. So selling yourself on paper is important. Then it's leading into what you're talking about, selling yourself by showing up. So selling yourself by showing up is your interviews that you have. It's the one-on-one conversations that you might have with a colleague or a classmate. So I think there's a gap between selling yourself on paper for a lot of people and selling yourself on the one-to-one level, showing up in person. So that's the biggest gap that I see. Um, to be honest, a lot of people struggle with showing up on paper. So they don't know how to position themselves in a way that will get them to what they want. And then when it's time to translate that on a conversation level, so interview, walking into a room, networking, they also struggle with that. So what I tell people to do is I tell them to volunteer. So go volunteer at an event at a local community something, sign up for some public speaking classes, go back for career days at high schools and middle schools, anything that you can do to work that muscle because a lot of us don't work the muscle of communication. So I think that's the biggest tie in here. It's the communication piece. So the more you can work that muscle in a low in like a non-threatening situation. So that's like the high schools or like a college fair or something like that. The more you can work that communication muscle, the better off you'll be when it's time for you to show up and sell yourself in a professional setting.
Yeah, and they always say it's not what you know, it's who you know. I always take it one step farther. It's not what you know or who you know, it's who knows you. So being able to put yourself out there is,
Yes.
to me, the most lost skill and the most important skill that young people can learn now, because whether or not you decide to go to college or not, whatever field you want to get into, you've got to learn how to sell yourself, because you can have all the skills in the world, but people have to know
Yep.
you have it. Well,
Yeah, I do. That's where the personal branding part comes in. A lot of people have to work on that for sure as well. Yeah.
big time. Well, I do have a couple questions from the students. I'll get to as many of these as I can. This first one is Bryson Stevens. He's in ninth grade. And he asked, in developing AI, what is the hardest thing you've had to overcome?
Woo! The AI tool. So to develop my specific tool, I actually had to prompt it so that my users don't have to prompt the tool. So the
Oh,
biggest thing and lesson I learned was how to be clear on exactly what the system or tool needs to do so that my consumers get the best result. So that has been the toughest part. And then I also hired a team. So how do I communicate? That goes back to that communication piece. How do I communicate exactly what I need the tool to do, exactly what I need the tool, how I need it to structure it, and how I need it to function in order for my idea to be a reality, and for it to work for my consumers as well. So those are the two hardest parts. But it's not, if you have the privilege of hiring a team, they make it a little bit easier so that you're not pulling your hair out or trying to teach yourself everything. You always go to the people who have the expertise to help you build up what you are working on.
awesome. This is Cortez Maxwell. He's in 10th grade. And he asked, when you first started Breakroom Buddha, what was the biggest inspiration to start it after you graduated from college?
Ooh, I would say the students. I love helping people, and I just knew that my time was not unlimited. Like I had a job and I was a new grad, so I had to learn how to balance my internet connections that I was making, the advice I was giving, as well as the job that I was doing. I was in a high volume setting, so we were always working. So that gave me the inspiration. I was like, how can I just scale me as a person the same way that I created my AI tool? How can I scale me or extend me so that those resources live on beyond me? And I have a little bit of my time back, just a little bit. But so yeah, that was my biggest inspiration. And I'm glad that it's still helping students today.
That's awesome. Well, I got time for one more. This is Zarius Cooper. He's a senior. And he asked, what types of AI advancements do you see happening in the future?
Ooh, so I will touch on the fact that a lot of people think AI will take jobs. I like to say that AI will help us overcome some of the tedious tasks that we do
There
so
you
that we
go.
have more elevated jobs. Now people have more time to understand AI and build systems and tools around the technology, and that could potentially be your job. So that's what I foresee. I think every single person will touch AI in some way. It may not be called AI when you touch that thing, but I think it will be a part of our daily lives as well as our daily jobs. So that is my biggest prediction going into the future of the workforce. So I tell everyone, start playing around with some AI tools, the no prompt ones and the ones where you have to prompt so that you at least understand how it works and how it thinks and what it generates, because you will have to use it. I'm already seeing job descriptions where it's asking for you to understand how to use AI to enhance your job. So yeah, that's the biggest trend that I foresee and that I think will happen in the future.
And it's funny. Every AI person we've had this year has said the exact same thing. And we've had a couple of authors that have written books about it, and they've said, look, they're not going to take the jobs, but the skills needed for these jobs are going to change. So no matter what field somebody
Yeah.
wants to get into, they're using AI in construction now. They're using it a lot in hospitals. They're using it in truck driving. So there's going to be AI that touches everything. So it's important for these kids to
Yep.
be familiar and comfortable with these AI skills. And like you said, you can get a degree in something, get a certificate on top of that. You're that much more marketable to these companies that desperately need
Yep.
good people to take the place of people that are going to start retiring.
Yep, that's true. That is another big thing to watch out for. Retirement is here for a lot of folks. And they will need people to step in and sort of elevate and take some of those jobs as well. So technology can help in that sense too.
Awesome. Well, we're almost out of time, and we thank you so much for taking some time for us. But a couple things before we go. Tell us where to find Breakroom Buddha and all your YouTube videos because you've got some really good stuff on there that answers a lot of these questions these kids may be asking as they transition through school.
Yeah, for sure. So Breakroom Buddha is breakroombuddha.com. It will always be breakroombuddha.com. If you would like to use my AI tool, you can find a link on that website as well. But the direct link is aicareercopilot.com. And then on YouTube, it's just Breakroom Buddha. So you can go there and watch all of my career strategy sessions as well. So excited to see y'all. Stop by.
Absolutely. Now, the last thing before we go, and we mentioned briefly about every industry is going to see AI skills be necessary. But on top of that,
Yes.
those interpersonal skills are never going to go away. So why is it so
Nope.
important for these young people now to really focus on mastering both?
Yeah, great question. So the technology will get you far in the actual job or career space that you're in because it'll help you move a little bit faster. It'll help you brainstorm a little bit more and take your ideas to the next level. But interpersonal, in order to get the job, in order to get in a certain network or space, you have to talk to people. So the human element of life will never go away. You need people in community to uplift you, to keep you moving forward, to help you achieve your goals. So that's why both are important. You always need technology and humans both together. You can't have them separately. So I'm excited to see what your students do and what the students watch and do. Just make sure to keep that human element and that tech element with you everywhere you go, and you'll go far.
Awesome. Well, again, we thank you so much for joining us. The creator of Breaker Room Buddha, AI content creator, Deja White, all the way from Atlanta, Georgia. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Awesome. Thank you so much, everybody. Bye.
I talk to you soon, buddy.